are tied together in the way that they're portrayed on the show, showing their rejection to care about what others think of their food choices. Mama June and her family did not quite stick to this embracement of her and her family's fatness and low social status, and appeared to fall victim to the medicalization of fat bodies, as we can see in their appearances on The Doctors and Dr. Oz. Mama June brought Honey Boo Boo onto The Doctors, a health intervention TV show, where the focus surrounded Honey Boo Boo getting help for her weight when she was just 9 years old. The host explains that at the age of 9, Alana had a BMI of 30, putting her at the obese range and at risk for future health problems. Besides this, the fact that they came onto the show and agreed to the doctors diagnosing Alana and prescribing her with a diet for not being thin displays how they fall victim to the medicalization of fatness. The show only further perpetuates Southern stereotypes of fatness and poor food choices by continually flicking to clips of Honey Boo Boo saying things like, "I like a lot of stuff deep fried, corn dogs, deep fried turkey, and more." All the while, Mama June attempts to justify her overweight status as a product of the steroids she's on for her respiratory issues. This sort of flicking back and forth between Alana proclaiming her love for food versus Mama June trying to justify these issues as a result of her respiratory issues sort of makes Mama June appear as a stereotypical, uneducated Southerner, especially when the host mansplains to Mama June that the food we eat is often a common culprit of other health issues that we deal with. Ultimately, the host blames Mama June for Alana's weight, saying that she needs to take responsibility and that a 9-year-old is not going to be making the decisions, and that's on Mama June. He says, "You've got this beautiful 9-year-old daughter dealing with severe medical problems," and ultimately says that it's Mama June's fault and that she needs to be doing a heck of a lot better. In Cindy Sturtruth's article, A Study Done in Georgia, Sturtruth explains that this is a common phenomenon for the blame to be put upon parents, with more sympathy being aimed towards the child, and more harshness towards the parent who they believe should know better and is treated with a level of harshness. In Sturtruth's words, the child is not seen as responsible for their own bodily state, but instead the victim of the poor choices of the adult in their lives. But still, Alana falls victim to medicalization and anti-fat narratives because, as a child, as the host says, a child is not going to be making the decisions and therefore could not decide whether or not to give in to these narratives or even go on the show. Years later, Mama June appeared on Dr. Oz for her 261-pound weight loss after her gastric bypass surgery. To begin with, the amount that it cost to get this surgery displays that Mama June and Honey Boo Boo at this point were no longer of a lower social status and no longer were having to reject classist narratives as they accumulated wealth over the years from their show. On Dr. Oz, Mama June steps out from behind an old cardboard cutout of herself, and immediately the audience looks on in amazement, applauding, showing how weight loss is glorified, automatically implying that fat bodies are not okay as they are and should be dealt with medically, amplifying anti-fat narratives. The host asks strange questions, continually implying that she wasn't attractive before because of her body, saying things like, "Do you feel sexy in your new body? And how does it feel to have a revenge body?" implying that there's no way a fat person can feel sexy in their bodies. But Mama June both combats and gives into the stigma, saying things like, "Well, I feel sexier." She both implies that she felt sexy before, but that being a smaller size is better than being bigger. Yet she begins to sort of contradict feeling sexy before weight loss when she says that for years she felt like she just wasn't worth anything. This is really interesting because it contrasts what she would say for years before on the show, before she lost weight, where she would say that she would embrace her fat and had a man who loved her for her size. And it seems as though all these anti-fat narratives being pushed at her from the public sort of made her start to view these traits negatively and feel the need to turn to medicalization and get weight loss surgery, and conceptualize her fat self as the worst version of herself. Interestingly, as well as the intense praise she got from the audience, she also was called smart by Dr. Oz, something that never really happened to her before her weight loss, and this kind of shows us that stereotypes of low education level, low social status, and things like that are associated with fatness. She wasn't called smart before because people saw her as fat and all the stereotypes that come along with being that, such as being unproductive, lazy, and ultimately uneducated because of her Southern food choices. Turning to mainstream media portrayals of Here Comes Honey Boo Boo, we can see that the public ultimately shames Honey Boo Boo and Mama June for embracing their redneck identities, their fat bodies, and low social status that they had at the beginning of the show. In an SNL skit, Bobby Moynihan plays Mama June and Vanessa Bayer plays Honey Boo Boo. In the skit, Moynihan says things like, I just always look like a video that's been paused in a weird spot, and I'm mostly concentrating on supporting my own head. This last comment is clearly a jab at her weight and general appearance, where she's portrayed as unkempt and uneducated, as they imply with looking like a video that's been paused in a weird spot, implying that she's kind of slow. The way she talks, drawing her words together, also ties Southerners and the Southern accent to a lack of education. In general, Mama June is just portrayed as unkept, tying in with the idea of portraying lower-class Southerners as unclassy. In fact, they start speaking gibberish at one point, and the host says, "Oh, that's right, even though you both speak English, your show is mostly subtitles." This sort of speaks to the idea that outsiders see them and their Southern vernacular as a sign of a lack of education, deeming that no one can even understand them. In an episode by South Park called Raising the Bar, Honey Boo Boo in the reenactment says, "I'm fat as a whale and I don't give two shits." So it appears as though they're kind of poking fun at them for embracing their fat bodies and not caring about fatness or seeing it as a problem. And it kind of gives off the message that you can't win or lose in the media. Everybody preaches about body positivity, but when you actually do embrace your body, you're seen as being gluttonous or embracing being unhealthy. It's like you can't win because you're either bashed for being fat or bashed for embracing your fat. And then Honey Boo Boo, in the reenactment, goes on to say, "I'm only 6 and I've had 3 heart attacks." Once again, sort of referring to Southern stereotypes of poor food choices and having unhealthy diets, and sort of mocking these food choices, saying it's impacting their health severely. Later in the skit, Mama June says, "Well, the doctor says Honey Boo Boo needs a heart transplant. They're gonna do surgery and put a pig heart in her." This mockery makes them appear to be super uneducated and sort of disgusting through using this imagery and making Honey Boo Boo crawl around on the floor like a pig, quite literally comparing Honey Boo Boo and Southern self-proclaimed rednecks as disgusting and animal-like, and comparing their Southern traditions, like mud diving and eating Southern soul food, to living like animals, knocking them down from their status as respectable human beings. Ultimately, the individuals in Here Comes Honey Boo Boo did embrace their redneck Southern identities and the stereotypes of poor food choices, fatness, and low social status that came with it. But due to social discourse and shaming from the media, they eventually fall victim to seeing these traits as negative and changing their ways as they gained fame and fortune, particularly Mama June with her gastric bypass surgery. However, this weight loss did not last long, and she gained back the weight quickly, which Lori Cooper Stoll claims to be common with weight loss surgery, as these surgeries are not a quick fix, further proving the medicalization of fat bodies to purely be about money-making, rather than actually solving any problems. The high cost of medicalization of fat bodies further proves that as she gained fame, Mama June began giving into classist narratives through spending large sums of money on her appearance, both giving into anti-fatness and classism, but sadly is still shamed today for gaining back her weight. Sadly, she also fell into drug addiction, spending nearly $1 million on drugs a year. And unfortunately, drug addiction is yet another stereotype of Southernness, laziness, and unproductivity that many judge her for today. These stereotypes will likely follow Honey Boo Boo and Mama June throughout their lives. Alana, on the other hand, recently came out in an article in People magazine discussing how everybody is all about body positivity until they see a body they don't like, and that she's body shamed a lot on the internet, and says that just because she has a little extra meat on her bones, she gets hate and doesn't understand it. She says that she knows she's beautiful and has a, quote, banging body, which displays that Alana still embraces her body and rejects fat-phobic narratives that are directed towards her. But still, she fell victim to the classist narratives that were directed towards her, and ultimately somewhat rejects her redneck status now. She says, "Just because I'm from the South, people expect me to be all country bumpkin, out riding four-wheelers all the time. But that's not really how it is." She explains that now she likes to get her nails and eyelashes done, proving that she believes these characteristics not to be associated with her Southern identity, as they're associated with being put together and being of a higher social status, which Southernness is not. With their rise to fame, clearly classist ideologies got the best of Alana and Mama June, but still Alana proves fat-phobic haters wrong with her strong sense of self and embracement of her fat body, a phenomenon still rare to see today. As Lori Cooper Stoll says, we need to move away from fat-phobic narratives, creating laws to protect fat people from discrimination, and participating in everyday micro-fat activism. refusing to engage in negative fat talk, diet talk, and body shaming, and end the war on fat people that so often goes hand in hand with Southern and classist stereotypes.